I'm Nathan Mull. I was born in Towns County, Georgia, and I've been raised in Clay County all my life. I'm a native, and my grandfather actually got me into making liquor. He went to prison over it, so it was something that I thrived to do and carry on from him, and just to make headway of what it was all about, you know. So I was always drinking medicine when I was a kid because Dad had always given me the liquor and the honey and the black pepper for bronchitis, because I was world renowned to make bronchitis. So, but that's how I got into it. Was my grandfather and my family was world renowned for Clay County moonshine. My papa, he changed religion, and he had a 65 gallon. And when he turned religion, the neighbors was always in the law. They was always fighting, always getting in trouble. And since papa had became religious, he didn't want nothing to do with it, and he didn't want to go back to prison. So he took a double-bitted axe and a go devil and went out there and beat a 65 gallon steel into a copper ball about that big, and then took it to the scrap metal. And that was disheartening. So that was probably the first time I'd actually seen one. But then the first time I ever seen one running was my own, like I said, when I bought it when I was 15. And then started learning and getting into it, and asking questions, going here and going there, reading this, reading that, and then just, but as far as just sitting down telling me, he wouldn't do it. So I had to go to other parts of my family to learn stuff and ask questions. And that's where I came from, is because they knowed and they still made it. So that's how it came. Just making it in general, the beginning, and getting it by my mom. My dad was on board with it, and he enjoyed it because he can remember, he said, when he was 16, going way back in the mountains, carrying the thump keg out after Papa got out of prison, and he said, you know, he'd be carrying the thump keg through the woods. Papa would be like, shh, but he's like, you can't be quiet with a big thump keg on your back, you know, and it boom, you know. So, but Dad was on board, my mama wasn't, and that was just getting around my mom and then just learning. First time I ever tried it, I was 15 years old. Like I said, I bought a 7 gallon from a guy I knew, that, and I'd split locust steaks out all summer for money, and he sold it to me. So we made apple brandy for the first time, and it didn't turn out worth a crap. We started out with green apples, and we didn't really understand, you know, you had to let them rot, and that was a big thing. But we've made apple brandy, and then we made blue water, and then we used little of this, little of that, you know. But we got it kind of tuned in after a while. I ran the 7 gallon till I got to making quality, good drinkable liquor. And then I went up to a 18 gallon. And then I ran it for, Lord, years and years. And then I moved up to a 45. And then I actually got my hands on it was made, I believe, in the 60s. It was old original. A man and a woman both made liquor in my family. They was husband and wife, but neither one knew where each other's still was. What she made was her money. What he made was his money. And come to find out, she went snooping one time and actually found his still. And in the stalk arm, she shoved a potato in it. So she went back to the house and didn't say a word. Well, he come in. He said, I don't know what's going on. He said, I keep blowing the cap off my steel. And she snickered. And he suspected something, so he headed back out. Boy, they about got a divorce over that. And he blowed the cap off still, I don't know how many times, but she had shoved a potato in the stalk arm and hid it. But the still that I normally run is, like I said, it was made in the 60s, and it was her last still that she ever made. And she was the only woman I ever know to actually do the real moonshine, and she was good at it, and so was he. But it's all compression, put it together, paste it up, tapered furnace, rivet style, you know, that was built for a furnace that you actually mashed in the steel. You didn't have your barrels, well, you had them, but take a hickory cloth or a hickory stick and wrap a cloth around it and pull it in the slop arm to seal it off because there wasn't no valves. And then when you went to empty it, you shoved it back in. And that was it. I like making authentic malt corn. When I make my corn, I don't use yeast. I malt my own corn, I sprout it, I dry it, I grind it, I do my own grinding, I even grow my own corn. There's a certain type of corn that I grow, that I use, that it just gives an authentic corn flavor that you can't get from a hybrid corn or a field-grown corn that's in mass production, you know. I use white, and like I say, I just use my malt. Sometimes it takes 7 days, sometimes it takes 14, sometimes it takes 21. You never know. It all depends on the moon and stars and everything above, but I try to set everything. I try to start all my barrels and all my mash in the signs of the knees. I was always told don't never start a barrel with the signs in the head. They said if you start a barrel with signs in the head, it'll blow the cap every time. I haven't been brave enough to try it, and I don't want to try it, and I ain't going to try it, but I've always been a fan of starting my barrels in the knees. It's the signs, the astrological signs or whatever in the knees. I pickle all my fruit or all my corn and everything with the signs in the knees, because you know you got your signs that goes from your heads to your hearts to your grinds to the secrets. And they say if you ever start pickling corn or pickling food or starting a barrel, if it's in the bowels or the secrets, it'll come out smelling like shit. And once again, I ain't tried it, but that's what they say. that's a folklore, I guess you'd say, but I don't want to try it to mess it up because there's too much work and effort into it. I've made brandies, a lot of brandies, and actually I ended up making a lot of grappa because a friend of mine owned a vineyard, and he got out of it, making the wine. And he had 47, something like that, barrels of wine. He said, you want it? You bet. So I went and ended up with about 12 barrels, and I ended up making a lot of grappa. You know, it was wine that I just processed into shine, and it was good. I think it ended up being over 70 or 80 something gallons actually that I ended up with it. That was just real good, smooth, good wine, brandy, you know. But regardless of the brandy or the shine, if I make a run, I'll try it myself, of course. If it don't suit me, I'll run it again. If it don't suit me then, I'll run it again until it gets to where I want it, because I just feel like I like to make something that everybody likes, because I'm a people pleaser basically, you know. I want to make sure that it's suitable to everybody. Well, my locations are scary enough. And these people know that, but it's kind of hidden in plain sight, I guess. So I'm always looking over my shoulder. And then just getting burnt. That's the biggest thing. Actually, I'm burning on my belly right now because setting up a barrel, the pot was too heavy to carry. I used my belly as leverage, and it burnt me. And that's the biggest thing. You can get burnt easy. You can blow a still up easy, catch it on fire. And something as senseless as a dog running by, a hit, and you still, you know, knocking it over. That's the scariest thing, is just my location. I sold my 18 to a buddy of mine and was trying to mentor him into, you know, how to do it and whatever. I'm gonna tell this on my wife and myself both, but she's gonna kill me. But I went to my buddy's house that I sold the 18 to, and I always told him use paste, and I told him use rye flour, just rye flour. Well, my buddy called me that day and he said, come over here. He said, there's something wrong. I said, I don't want to come. He said, please just come. He said, something's wrong. So me and my wife, we loaded up and went to my buddy's house. And he said, come down here. We went in his basement. And we went to the basement. We went, oh my God. One, he was running blue liquor. I mean, it was just as blue as dang Listerine in a can. And the other one is he was making pounds of bread, apparently, because on his thump cake, he had used flour, and he had biscuits that big around every joint on the steel. I told him, I said, buddy, ain't no help for you. I said, cut it off, it ain't ready. We're done. But yeah, he had on the joints here and here and around the cap, and then this one, because it was just a stalk arm, you know. Yeah, the whole top of the thump keg was just a big biscuit. My family pulled me through a lot. I mean, because I did other extracurricular activities for 12 years of my life, as well as moonshining and making liquor, that, you know, and this was one of the hobbies that, you know, I stuck with, that don't hurt me as bad as the other stuff, you know. And my family and my boss, though, they stuck with me through it all. That's my heroes. I have went through a lot of people and picked brains from this and that one, and read this and read that, but ultimately you got to make it your own. You got to do what's your own way, and you can take a little knowledge from this one, that one, and this one, but in a wholesome, you got to make it your own. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and that's it. So hopefully one of these days, when grandchildren come along, not rushing it by no means, but she's gonna stick to schooling and her degrees first. But hopefully one of these days, you know, when grandchildren comes along, you know, there'll be one that takes a shining to it, or son-in-law, you know, just whoever and whatever takes a shining to it. I've helped a lot of people out, you know, and tried to teach some people, obviously, but it's not a real big secret. I mean, it's not like bass fishing. It's secret what the lure is. I mean, it's just simple ingredients: corn, malt, or yeast, if you want to use yeast, sugar, and water, you know. And like I say, it's just a matter of your own preference, what your ratios is, to what suits you, or just however you want to make it, you know. There's no secret to it. Sugar, corn, or your fruits, and let it run. My family's supportive of it now. They enjoy it because, like I say, I mean, I've got a full-time job. I work 50, 60 hours a week and everything. And it's a nice little hobby. And like I say, I give more away than anything. And I love seeing people enjoy it. And I help people out, you know, with medicine. Or, I mean, there is people that comes that I turn away because they're alcoholics, and I know what they're going to do with it, and that's what I don't want, you know. I don't want somebody to get hurt on it. It's strictly for sipping, medicine, or just that, you know. But yeah, it's a family event. We all get together, and it's something that we enjoy, you know, from time to time. I keep all my family and my friends and the people that I deal with real close, so I'm more low-key. I keep my golden ring tight, and that's the safest, easiest way for me. One time I was actually running peach brandy under the old house I had a big deck on it, and it had lattice on it, and I was actually running peach brandy, and here come a cop car to my house. So I run around the house, and I know the guy. He was in a cop car, but he was the animal control. He said, "Ain't you got a white bulldog?" "Yeah, I do." Is he here?" "Yeah, he stays in the house." "Oh, okay, well, there's this white bulldog over here across the road. They said it was probably yours." And I said, "No, Bobo's in the house." And I showed him the door. "Okay, all right, see you. See you." And he went on. But how he kept from smelling it, I'll never know. But like I said, this was quite a few years ago, and at the time I known the feller, and so even if he had smelled it, I don't think he would have said much. But yeah, just a matter of knowing who it was, and while they're pulling up at my house in a police car, that was the big shocker. Yeah, put your mind to anything and you can do it. Keep pressing forward.